Hello, hello, oh so local. Today we're welcoming our fourth guest, Alyssa Falkenstein. She is a Christian blogger and she's the founder and creator of Hammer and Bee, which is her blog website. And I actually met Alyssa because I used to work with her husband when we were teenagers. I believe it was our first job together at McDonald's. And then sometime later, we just happened to both live in Lakewood, Ohio, and we got together when we had new babies, and that's how we met. And I have always really enjoyed Alyssa's writing. She's been blogging for over 9 years. She started her website, her official website, Hammer and Bee, in 2020. But I've always loved reading her writing on Facebook, and it's really inspiring. And I admire her a lot and her ability to break down the biblical context. If you could just give us a little intro and tell us about you and your blog page.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
My name is Alyssa. I am a wife and mom to three girls. I homeschool. Writing has always been a passion of mine. I've always just really loved it. And so it's been a hobby my entire life. I started blogging when my oldest was a newborn because I fell down the rabbit hole of natural parenting and natural birth. And that is something that I originally blogged on before I felt really called to go into what I'm writing now. I grew up in a really odd family situation and experienced neglect and abuse that really had an effect on my mental health, and that's why I'm so passionate about that aspect. Um, Hammer and Bee came about because I am a Christian and I love Jesus, and unfortunately, I feel like women can't catch a break, whether it's in secular environments or Christian environments. I feel like there's such stereotypes that are promoted and upheld that are harming women. And I wanted to explore the biblical context behind a lot of the verses that are used to trap women and sometimes abuse them or keep them beneath their calling of what God has for them in their life.
Yeah, that is part of the reason why I enjoy your writing so much because it's so relatable and it's not covered in shame or making you feel bad. Like after I read your writing, it makes me feel more empowered. So you had told me that you wanted to write a book in the future. And part of the reason that you started this blog was to become established in the writing world.
Yeah.
I know that you're a mother, you're a homemaker, you homeschool your children, you're investing into their futures at home, but it's also this is like your passion and your way to put your creativity out into the world and uplift women. So can you just give us a little bit of background on why it's so important to you?
Yeah. Well, one, I feel like God designed creativity and He put it in all of us. We all have some facet of creativity that is bursting to come out of us. And writing has been one of those mediums for me. So not only am I pursuing it for myself and to share what I hope encourages people and gives them the bravery to go out and do what they need to do in their worlds. But I want my daughters to see that they can follow their dreams, that they can go after big things and exciting things and do the brave, scary thing. Um, I want to be that example to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because those littles are always watching.
Hmm.
Yeah. Being a mom, having trauma in my background and being a mother and having like those triggers
Hmm.
where you don't even realize that you're going to have to deal with that as a mom, where things that happen will trigger you to, that past that you had in your childhood. And it's like always a process to be healing with your children in a way, like
Yes,
as they grow
actively.
older.
You want me to share some of that in my story?
Yeah, like if you want to give a little bit of background and why, how this has impacted your life with raising daughters,
Yeah,
especially.
absolutely. My beginning years are odd. My biological mom gave me up. Her mom got guardianship of me. And there was stuff going on in her own life that led to us running from Ohio. And I grew up in North Carolina. I didn't I wasn't really allowed to have contact with my family. We tried over the years, but everyone else's stuff always got in the way. It was just not in our family culture to like have problems and work through it. It was have problems and then cut off communication. And so that's all I knew. Um, so my biological grandmother raised me, and I definitely think she had her own issues that she wasn't able to take care of, and that impacted me. I think I'm in a place in my life and my healing where I can observe that she was operating out of her own trauma and hurt,
Yeah.
but that doesn't excuse that you deeply hurt a child because of your own stuff.
Right.
So it was a lot of emotional and mental abuse, and it took a long time for me to be okay using that word because I was so conditioned to think that was normal.
Right.
But I remember I started self-harming when I was 8, like the first time, and that when I thought about that the other day, that just took me aback because that's younger than my oldest child.
Yeah.
That's the first time I ever cut myself. And I spent my later childhood years and my teen years deeply depressed, very anxious, very suicidal, as things just continued to get worse and worse in my home. So but by the time I was 18, I had tried to commit suicide 3 times. I really do believe God stopped them every single time because my time wasn't up yet and I still had stuff I needed to do here. And then eventually she kicked me out over something really stupid. And my godmother picked me up after church one day and I never looked back.
And you came back to Ohio.
And then I came back to Ohio.
And then you met Justin? Or you already knew Justin?
So Justin and I actually, my stepdad and his dad were best friends.
Okay.
So his mom babysat me when I was little.
Okay.
So allegedly, he was my first kiss when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And I made him kiss me. He has a very vivid memory of it. I made him kiss me while his mom was babysitting us. So our families were really close and we knew each other then.
Okay.
But I didn't have much contact with anybody up in Ohio. So when I had moved up here, my family just put me in contact with a lot of people who would love to know that I was back. And so I met his parents and then got to meet up with him, and it was love at first sight.
Yay. That's amazing. I love that. I love your guys' story.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like you guys have been together about as long as me and Gavin. Well, probably longer, actually.
Our 11
Well, you've basically known each other
Well, yeah.
like for a very, very long time, but
we are celebrating our 11-year wedding anniversary on Monday.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Happy anniversary. I know Gavin and I will be together for 11 years in September.
That's amazing.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Decade in, lifetime to go.
Yeah.
I love that. And you have, okay, so you have your blog on Hammer and Bee. What is Hammer and Bee?
So Hammer and Bee is really cool, actually. So my female hero of the Bible, her name is Deborah. And I never learned about her until I was an adult because as a child, in most churches, you hear the same Bible stories about Noah and the ark or Esther or Moses or, obviously the story of Jesus. But I was reading in the Old Testament one day and I happened upon the story of a prophet and judge of Israel. Her name was Deborah. And this story is really BA. She is, as far as we know, the only female judge that Israel ever had. So in ancient Israel, before there were kings, there were judges. And it's not what we think of as a judge. Mm-hmm. It's like with the gavel and, putting people on punishment for their crimes. The judge was the political leader of of all the tribes. All the tribes came to the judge to get things sorted out for laws, for protection. And so Deborah was the only female judge that's documented, but she's also one of the few judges who was also given the gift of prophecy in the Bible. She was beautifully favored by God. And in her time, Israel had an enemy named Sisera, who was fighting against the tribes of Israel, bringing in armies and causing all this destruction. And people obviously wanted him to be taken care of. And the leader of her army, his name was Barak, he came to her and he said, I will not go into battle unless you come with me. And one of the Bible verses that always stuck out to me was, Israel was saved because I, Deborah, a mother, arose. And I thought that was so cool. She rose up and she, like the leader of her army wouldn't go to battle unless she came to be alongside him. And I thought that was so cool. But she prophesied to him, she said, because you will not go without me, Israel will be delivered into the hands of a woman, not a man. And I think people assumed it would be her. But it was actually what we would consider a housewife. So Sisera was in battle and he ran. And he ran to the tent of someone he thought would be trusted to hide him so he could escape.
Mm-hmm.
And Yael was the woman there. Her husband was out, but she said, absolutely, come in. I will get you warm milk. You lay down and take a nap. And while he napped, she took a tent peg from their home and impaled him through the head to kill him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was the prophecy coming true that a woman was the one who would take down Israel's greatest enemy. And I love the comparison of Deborah and Yael because Deborah was the leader of the nations
Mm-hmm.
and Yael was a quote unquote housewife.
Okay.
You know, her husband would be out taking care of the herds and taking care of business or fighting in this war. And she's the one who is taking care of the homelands. And Israeli women at that time, they were the ones who put the tent pegs, like they put the tents up. And these are giant tent pegs, like as big as my arm.
Like wooden stakes,
that they would have to have a
something?
mallet and the strength to pound it to the ground. And she took that and she pounded it through his skull to take him out. So I love that story so much because that shows what God can do with two very different women.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to look a certain way to be used by God or have a calling or a destiny. Every woman has one. And so when I was looking up the history behind their names, because I'm a nerd and I love to know all of that, Deborah was possibly comes from an ancient Hebrew word called debar, which means eloquent speaker, which I love, obviously.
Yeah.
But it also could come from a Hebrew word that means bee. And I thought that was really beautiful.
Okay.
So then I was doing the research behind Yael, and her name means goat, you know, which isn't as cool, goats and bees, but she's the hammer. And, you know, you can be an eloquent bee who's a speaker and a leader, or you could be the hammer that gets stuff done. And I think that shows a beautiful spectrum of womanhood.
Yeah,
So,
balance.
yeah.
It's like a balancing act, you
Yeah,
know?
so
Yeah.
that's why I chose the name Hammer and Bee.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
It makes it sound so much better because it's like I didn't know all the background about that.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah,
and that's what I want to get out there.
Well, and like you had mentioned before, there's like a lot of, I don't know if you want to use the word abuse or shame and stuff like that that the church does with women. And I know that you had this blog post that talked about single women in the church and how they make them feel. And unfortunately, that's just the way of the world because humans are imperfect and we know that. Take your own perspective when you know that that's not right. Like if you feel like that's not right, it's probably not right. And like you're bringing light to, you know, being a woman doesn't have to mean that you're less than a man. You are equal. You know, you have purpose. And especially as a stay-at-home mom or a housewife, or you know, when you have young children, you know, our children are only very very young for about 5 years, and those are like the most impressionable years of their life. And to invest that time into your kids because they are only that little for so long. But I know that it becomes frustrating sometimes when you are a housewife and that's the only thing that you're doing. You get tired of the chores and the, you know, the repetitiveness and, you know, you feel like it's the end of the world sometimes because you are secluded in a way. And we used to raise children in a village before, and the way that society and culture has changed, at least here in America, we don't really have that as much.
So isolating to be a mom now.
Yeah, and like of course there's social media, but that's very different than physical contact and interaction. And I think it's extremely important to realize that if you are feeling that kind of way, one, it's completely normal. You might have postpartum depression. I know you mentioned you struggled with that as well. just start doing something that's going to let that out, you know? And I'm not saying everyone needs to be, you know, a small business owner or doing something, but really you do. There has to be something
to be just you.
Like, even if it's just starting to read or writing. I've been also journaling since I was like 8 years old. That's as far back as I can actually see documented. So 22 years of writing, and there was times where I like fell off of it, but like writing is my happy place, and I don't feel like I'm a professional at it at all, or like I've always been really bad at grammar because like I grew up bilingual English and Spanish, so I feel like I always struggled with English grammar and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff never clicked with me.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a minute to get back into doing stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But you should
pouring out for other people all the time. It's hard. And sometimes I feel like moms also struggle to feel like they're worth taking the time for themselves.
Exactly. Like they don't deserve the time.
Yeah. But whether it's writing or just taking time to read a book for fun.
Yeah.
Or painting or gardening. There's
gardening.
We can go on
Gardening is like my adult favorite therapy time.
Yeah. Work therapy.
Therapy.
Mm-hmm. But we exist as humans aside from our careers or our families or our house, and we deserve to have interests and hobbies because someday when you're not in that career anymore, who's going to be left?
Right.
Or someday when your kids are grown and they're doing their own thing and making their own families, what's going to be left? You, your marriage, your home, your time that you need to fill. And I have seen so many empty nesters struggle with that. Their whole identity left with their children. And I want my kids to see that mommy has her own stuff. You know, mommy has to have boundaries sometimes because I want me to still exist when they are gone. And I sometimes I have to honor that and protect that and say, we've been doing this all day and playing all day, but mommy's writing hours are tonight. I cannot watch that movie with you. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have boundaries with work. Our writing or our career or this or that shouldn't also take all of our time with our family. Boundaries are important on both sides, but it's okay. And I think really beneficial for your kids to see you pursuing the things that make you come alive.
Yeah. Can we talk about boundaries? I feel like that's something that I feel like that's something that's like talked about.
Oh yeah, it's super trendy.
But
trendy word.
I feel like people misunderstand what a boundary is. Mm-hmm. And they're like dictating what boundary another person is going to have. Well, if they do this, then blah, blah, blah. But it's like
it becomes a punishment or something to villainize someone or to get back at them. And that's not what a true boundary should be.
Right. So boundaries are for yourself.
Yeah. Actually, I have a friend who has recently launched a life consulting business.
Sweet.
She's amazing and
life coaching?
Yes. And
is she local?
Yes, she is. I can connect
That's
you.
like my future goal. I want to be a life coach. But
she's amazing. And one thing that she said to me once was boundaries are supposed to be like fences and gates. It is not a mountain moat to keep people from getting to you. It's a gate to say, if you're not safe, then you need to be outside of the fence right now. But there is a gate that opens. Mm-hmm. And it's something to just protect your space.
Yeah.
And protect your mental health, protect your family, protect what needs to be guarded and stood up for.
Yeah.
Honoring your time. Boundaries should not be punishments for people.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Boundaries are for you. Like if you are triggered, if you are triggered and you know that bothers you, what are you going to do or not do in that situation to make sure that you stay centered and not out of your acting out of character? Because you know sometimes, and that happens too, we act out of character sometimes and then we feel guilty about it. Awareness.
Absolutely.
Awareness.
Boundaries, the word is overused and misconstrued.
Yeah.
And I feel like people use it for as an excuse for everything, you know? Like, my family member has different political views than me. I set a boundary and I'm not saying them anymore. If we cut off every single person we disagree with about one thing or another, we won't have anybody left.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to, and part of why I want to have this podcast is because at the end of the day, like we are wired for human connection.
Absolutely.
And it's like electrical work in your
Mhm.
house, and I'm gonna take it to like something, Gavin would do, like a man's perspective. Like it's like the electrical wiring in your house. If it's not right, the house could burn down.
Mhm.
Like if the wiring isn't correct, like you have to go back and you have to fix it so there isn't a short, or
Mhm.
you don't brown out your house and part of it
Right.
because there's too much electricity on there. And I don't even know why I went into that concept.
It's a beautiful metaphor. Yes. That's so good though, because some things can be repaired,
Hmm.
and then other times something is so damaged it needs to be cut off and removed, and
Hmm.
something else needs to be put in its place.
Exactly.
And I think that's a beautiful metaphor.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I think I just lost my train of thought a little bit and where I was going with that.
tangent.
So thanks for coming in for the save.
You're welcome.
But yeah, so I think it's important to have good mental health, to stay connected with people, to
Community is so important.
make sure that your connections that you have are high quality.
Mhm.
Work on those ones that you like. The first relationship that you should be close and connected with is with yourself.
Mhm.
Like if you are not aware about the relationship you have with yourself,
Mhm.
those thoughts that conscious background,
Inner dialogue.
yeah. So
Mhm.
like if you're not aware of that and how that's affecting you, like,
Mhm.
and you are feeling crappy, like,
It will come out sideways onto everyone else.
yeah. So like just to have that awareness of what's going on. And obviously like supporting local businesses is the fun part, because I know that there's a diverse group of people out there. And like you were saying, like you can't just cut off connection to things that you don't like.
Mhm.
You're cutting off all those connections that you have with people. And at the end of the day, like that doesn't mean have 100 friends.
Right.
That means the ones that you have, like, make sure that they are
Totally.
quality.
Yeah. And I think people are afraid to differentiate between friends and acquaintances.
Mhm.
I feel like the word acquaintance isn't used enough anymore.
Yeah.
It's okay to say they're an acquaintance of mine.
Yeah.
Like you know
It's
them
not
okay,
negative.
but and it's not a negative word.
Yeah.
There's different tiers. You
Mhm.
have like your people, like your soul people, and then you have the friends that you cheer on, or the friends that are connections.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have layers.
Yeah.
But you're so right about like cutting off connections. I think that's another word that gets thrown around in our world right now is toxic. Everyone's toxic.
Yeah.
And not everyone's toxic.
Yeah. It's easy to say that.
Yeah. A lot of people are just needing healing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between someone that you work on things with and you repair a connection versus someone that it is needing to prune the plant
Mhm.
is someone who's willing to look, okay, yeah, there's something I need to work on here. Or
Mhm.
someone that is refusing to see how damaging they are. And I think that's a toxic person.
Yeah.
And that's okay sometimes to say that's when something needs to be, a firm line needs to be drawn.
Yeah. Nowadays, when I hear that, like, it's my curiosity, like, to understand why people are the way they are.
Absolutely.
Like, and I ask all the annoying questions, like, but, so I feel like I have more empathy for other people.
That's so important. Compassion, empathy are so important.
Yeah. And like, I feel like it's mostly because I went through that,
Mhm.
like because of my childhood trauma. During my teen years, you can ask anybody who knew me. I was very like, I feel like that was my ego, and I was very aggressive and very like, I don't want to say I was a bully, but I was probably mean to some people, and I feel bad about it. Like I wasn't like, this bully that's like fighting, well, like beating up kids and putting their head in the toilet sink. But I was just like this tough, like, no one can hurt me. But that was because I needed to protect myself because I wasn't protected as a child.
Mhm.
So, like, even though I may have seemed like a B word in high school, or I was just like real, like no one can mess with me kind of person, like, it's important to understand that those people aren't just a-holes.
Yeah. Sometimes
They
a lot
are
of times they
hurt.
feel like yours.
Yeah. So like when I hear toxic now, I'm like, what's it really about?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe you're just gonna write that off
Oh,
as
they're toxic.
hmm
Are they?
yeah. Like
Yeah.
maybe you are toxic
Mhm.
because you don't know how to talk to them about what you know.
That's good.
But this is fun. I love talking. I love talking.
I love talking.
I love talking. That's why I have a podcast, because I love talking. So you said you were planning to write a book. I know you told me what type or kind or genre, but I can't remember honestly. So if you could just give a little bit of background about that, and then inspirational, I call them thought seeds on my website. Planting the seed in someone, like it's up to them if it's going to grow, if you
Mhm.
give them something inspirational, but anything inspirational that you want to share with our listeners. But anyways, okay, so let me back up a little bit. I was going to ask you about what kind of book you plan to write in the
Yes.
future.
Well, ultimately, I love writing. So I'm writing Hammer and B. I want to write things that encourage and uplift women to be operating in their full capacities and wholeness. But I am also writing a fictional novel right now that I am hoping to be like published as a series, and it is fantasy adventure, but it does tie into my writing because it's very female character based
Okay.
and it's allegorical, so there's going to be Easter eggs and hidden messages inside that I hope will resonate with the people that are meant to find them.
Mm-hmm.
For me, growing up after a lot of my pain and my trauma, and I wasn't sure if I believed in God or not, I started reading the Chronicles of Narnia, and I had really damaging views of God because I was hurt. I was hurt by people. I was hurt by church people. I thought God was this evil, angry, bearded man in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And God wanted to woo me and show me who he really was. And I got to discover who he was by reading who Aslan was in the Chronicles of Narnia and reading how Aslan loved the Pevensey children, especially the adoration he had for Lucy. And it felt like I was connecting with God because I was seeing how he felt about me and the way that
Okay.
Aslan treated Lucy. So in my fictional writing, that's what I want. I want people to feel seen and loved and get a glimpse of what heaven is really like and who God really is and the identity that they really have. My main character is a princess who is fighting for her kingdom, and I
I
want
love it.
I want to write in the beautiful characteristics of biblical womanhood through that fantasy lens, because the word female should be synonymous with strong.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that, the word woman should be synonymous with warrior because that's what we're called. The Bible verse that I feel like a lot of some sects of Christianity use to abuse women or like keep them in a lower tier is the Bible verse where it says that Eve was made to be a helpmeet to Adam. And in the Hebrew, the word Azir Kenegdo that is used is a warrior who is to come alongside of him and is equal to him.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say we're just designed to take care of men.
Mm-hmm.
And that verse gets so misconstrued. But the word Azir, that is Hebrew, the only other time it's used in the Old Testament is to describe God as a warrior fighting for the Israelites. And I think that's rad.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what God used to describe us.
Yeah.
We're supposed to fight for our husband and we're supposed to fight for our kids and for the things that matter.
Yeah.
And that's what I want my character to come across as a warrior.
I love
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, well, we could just stop with that. I'm just kidding. I love that. See, this is why I love reading your writing.
Thank
I just
you.
love it so much. Um, so you started a new group,
Good.
and I just found it this week. I don't know if you started it before that, but I'm very curious about it. Can you tell us about this group you're starting?
Yes, there's a book called The Power of a Praying Parent.
Mhm.
And as a Christian, I feel like another aspect of Christianity that's not really focused on is the spiritual realm. And I think we have been given authority to speak things over our kids and to fight for them in the spiritual realm and pray over them and guard them. And this book is really incredible. It is a really tiny book, but it packs
Mhm.
a powerful punch, and it's 32 chapters. And each chapter is a topic of what to pray over your child, and it has scripture to back it up. So everything from their identity, their callings, good friendships, future spouses, their health, their education, their calling, all of that, speaking life over them. It's
Mhm.
very powerful. And so I just felt very led to start a group of women to read. Right now it's about 20 women joining me, and
Okay.
everyone, there are people joining every day, so we'll see how big it gets. But I want women to support each other in this because moms have that factor in common. We
Yeah.
want to fight for our kids.
Yes.
We want to protect them. We want to raise them up into strong, capable people.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think prayer does things. I think it infects the atmosphere and the world that we're in. And I want to have my kids covered. So we're going to start reading it in the middle of June.
Okay.
And I'm going to be leading the group in that. It's all going to be online because
everyone's
got
different schedules. That's
but
awesome, though.
I'm hoping
because
to do live readings of it in the website. That way, if people can't read, you're busy, you can listen.
Yes, awesome. So the plan with the reading group, you're gonna do like you're gonna feature a different book every month, or once it's finished,
I think once it's finished, I'd like to try and do more reading with people.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for moms to have time to read.
Yes, absolutely. Like instead of scrolling on Facebook for a half hour in the morning, we can get lost in a half hour reading. And I know it's easy to say, but if you start reading something that really gets gets your attention, yeah, like that 30 minutes will go by so quick that you'll be like, oh, I wish I had more time to read.
For sure.
But like even if you're starting out with, like one chapter a day.
Right. That's something. And it's fueling that creative spot inside.
But I was really excited about you posting about that because I definitely, like I said, my new back to reading, and it'll probably help me be more accountable.
Yes.
With all the other things that we got going on here.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited too because then be able to connect with other women, and that is like more of my excitement about it anyways. Connecting with women and talking about things that are going to lift us up and make our lives better. And I'm excited for you for that.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. So you said there's 20 people in there and it's growing. Woo woo.
Maybe one day they'll be reading my book.
Hey, they will. They will one day read your book. Well, I am so glad that you came.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for sharing your story and your goals and what you got going on now in the works, writing a book, got your blog. And again, you guys, if you guys want to visit her website and go subscribe to her blog page so you can get her beautiful writing to your email whenever they are posted, it's going to be in the show notes. We're going to have the link for Hammer and Bee for her blog page. And you're also on Facebook and Pinterest. No, not Pinterest.
Instagram.
Yes, that's the one. I was going to say LinkedIn. I was
thinking not yet.
Yep, you can go ahead and subscribe to her blog and support her and get that inspiration. And yeah, I just want to thank you for coming and thank you for listening, guys.